We'll start our presentation on mold right after breakfast. We were debating whether or not we should do during breakfast to kind of, save on time, but general consensus was that's a bad idea. So how many people here know or have come into contact with mold in their life before? Pretty much everyone, right? So almost everyone in the room has, walked into a place and, kind of smell that nasty smell and recognize that, what they're inhaling is probably not so good for them, right? The thing is with mold is that everyone has either come into contact with it, everyone in this room has breathed in what's called mold spores, and everyone is generally affected by mold growth. The thing is that people don't recognize that mold is a serious problem. It causes serious health concerns. It poses major problems and consequences for houses and structural components. And mold, in itself, is an enemy of the state, so to speak. It's really kind of dangerous. What we're here to do today with Mold Busters is to kind of raise a little bit of awareness about what exactly mold is, what are some of the consequences, and why Mold Busters is here in Ottawa in particular, in Montreal, in Toronto, and also in New Brunswick to help solve the issues that are caused by mold. So are you guys excited? Yeah. Much as I am. So first off, what is mold? Mold belongs to the kingdom of fungi, and it's one of the #1 degraders of cellulose on the planet. So there are about 200 species of fungi that we commonly encounter in our home, in our workplaces, and so on and so forth. And the most common ones that we encounter are yeasts and molds. We've all picked up the loaf of bread and it was moldy and cut around the mold to no, okay, that's just me. Never mind. Mold is something that we encounter on a regular basis. The thing is with mold is that they're very, very complex. Like we're talking about a microscopic organism, and the best way to kind of demonstrate to you guys what mold looks like on a microscopic scale would be to let's use this card. So picture a tree or a plant, and then we'll just use the card as being the soil of that tree or plant. So you have the tree growing up, so you have the trunk, and then at the very top you have the leaves and the fruit and all the rest of that stuff, right? So what's underneath the soil? Roots, right? Now picture that, or of a tree being exactly what mold looks like on a microscopic level. So what you see on the surface, that disgusting black, shiny, gucky stuff, that's what you would see on the surface. So the trunk and the leaves pretty much. But the real problem with mold lies underneath is that it actually latches itself underneath and grows. So although a common household remedy is bleach, right? You find mold, you pour bleach on it, it goes away, but guess what happens after a couple weeks or a month? It grows back again because of what's underneath. So mold is a very kind of complex organism, and what we're going to do right now is just kind of spend a little bit of time explaining, kind of what that what that actually does and what that leads to. The thing is with mold also is that it's highly allergenic. The cellular construct of mold is the same as a lobster. Believe it or not, there's actually one of the molecular constructs is the same that's used over the shell of the lobster. So anyone that's allergic to shellfish, for example, have a higher susceptibility of being allergic to mold, which is an interesting kind of fact. With mold, it's really important that everything that's kind of mold-looking or mold-like gets tested beforehand. And I guess if we were to summarize the goal of this presentation about mold awareness, it would be that particular point. That mold is not mold until it's tested. Because we all came to an understanding at the very beginning that we've all encountered mold in our life. So we all have an idea of what it is, what it looks like, what it smells like. But the thing is that it's not necessarily the case. When, for example, a home inspector or a real estate agent walks into a house and they're going around the room, around the house, and they see black spots over the wall. Automatically, that's mold, and that's what goes on the report right away. But that's not necessarily the case. That could be a discolored building material. That could be a variety of other things. Mold, because of its complexity, needs to be tested. We need to ensure of what we're dealing with. At the same time, there are different types of mold. So if you're going to treat mold, you're going to have to, just like a doctor needs to treat a specific remedy, he needs to know exactly what the symptoms are in order to treat it efficiently. Otherwise, he'll just be treating random stuff in hopes that it works, right? So with mold, it's the same thing. There are different types and different complexities of mold. Each of them need to be tested in order to be, determine how to be treated effectively. 3 major conditions are necessary for mold to grow. One is the food source, so like an organic material, like wood, drywall, fabrics, stone even, and other things like that. The other thing is temperature. So different species of mold grow in different, different temperatures. You could actually find mold in the desert as well as you could find mold in the dampest places on Earth. The thing is with mold is that water or moisture is its fuel for existence. So where there's a water problem, that's where you'll likely find a mold problem. And with mold and with water, if you clear out the water or if you have proper air circulation, your risks for obtaining mold are drastically reduced. If we're talking about the mold spores is something that we inhale all the time. Now, all of us, I know that kind of sounds gross, but we probably inhaled mold spores this morning. The thing is that we all have immune systems that have been used or developed to kind of withstand those types of effects. I'll explain what mold spores kind of look like on the same level. You know how we had our tree illustration with the roots and the trunk? Well, the mold spores would kind of be like the leaves. And in the fall, what happens with the leaves? They fall off and the wind blows them around, right? Same thing with mold spores. Those the leaves on mold kind of branch off and float around into the air. The crazy little thing about these mold spores is that they germinate upon contact with moisture. So pretty much if you have mold on a wall and someone walks by and the air kind of carries it through and knocks the leaves off of the tree, so to speak, they float around into another area of the house, come into contact with a water and a carbon-based substance. What do you think happens? They start to grow, they start to germinate, they start to pollinate. Now here's where things get really scary. How much percentage is the human body made up of water? 70%. 96, 70%. So we basically the number is anywhere between 70 and 96, more than half. So what do you think happens if we inhale mold spores?
Germinate.
Well, it has the potential for germination because mold spores need water in order to kind of reproduce. That makes it, again, like I said, a very serious matter. So if you have a child or if you have someone whose immune system is compromised as a result of age or illness or so on and so forth, they become more susceptible to toxigenic contamination. Another thing with mold spores is that they're very light, they disperse through the air easily. They're very hard to detect. It's something that you actually need professionals to come in and do proper testing with state-of-the-art equipment, which I'm going to be able to demonstrate in a little bit because Mold Busters has exactly that. And the thing is also with mold spores that they can produce toxins, and that's what causes health issues and problems. Small little fact, in about 1 square foot. So can someone measure out to me what 1 square foot may look like? All right. So if you got 1 square foot, if Elliot, right? By the way, amazing truck. I love it. Okay. So in that space that Elliot's holding up right now, of moldy drywall, you could have 1 billion mold spores in that one space. Now, again, keep in mind that we are dealing with a microscopic organism. So it's, when you think of it that way, 1 million or 1 billion mold spores in this space, and you walk into a house and the entire wall may be contaminated with mold spores. What do you think that's going to do to someone's health? Run. Someone said run, exactly, run. Pick up the phone, call.
Mold Buster.
There you go. You guys got it. Naturally, where to look for mold: under carpets, behind walls, in the air. We also look for mold in furniture, in fabrics, in wood, wallpaper, food, plants, soil, all that kind of stuff. Why mold is a problem? Mold is a problem obviously because it causes structural damage, and that is more time, more money for people in order to kind of fix and repair, and also health problems. And the health problems can stem from mild allergies. Again, people who are allergic to shellfish, more susceptible to those allergic reactions, to serious respiratory conditions. Actually, Yves, who works primarily out of the Montreal office, he was telling me about a plumber who went into a house that was contaminated with mold. And he was ill-prepared, didn't have the proper equipment, and guess what? Sick for 2 weeks, seriously sick. Calling Yves like, do you guys have a pill to kind of get rid of this stuff? And the answer is no. There is no pill to kind of alleviate the symptoms of illness caused by mold. A big thing that's happening right now in society is homeowners going in to buy a home that was previously owned by a grow-op. And that's something that Moldbusters is encountering a lot nowadays with marijuana grow operations, is that is like a hot spot for mold for a number of different reasons. For one, mold needs high levels of humidity in order to thrive. And with grow ops, obviously it's all plants in there, so it's the humidity levels through the roof. And the other thing is that marijuana grow ops need a lot of water in order for the plants to go through. So you have those two conditions that are just prime area for mold to grow. In addition to the fact that the lighting, with grow ops, the lights are on all the time. So all those different conditions really make grow operation homes disastrous for people to live into.
But it helps with the symptoms.
And from personal experience, so some of the common causes of mold. Some of them are obviously leaks and pipes in the roofs. Again, where water is, that's where you have the potential for mold. Cracks in their walls or foundations, flooding and other things of that nature. Inadequate ventilation, which is a major important part, and we're going to spend some time talking about how to rectify that. Poor insulation is another big one, and any other sources of excess moisture. So, for example, if you have a toilet with a leaky gasket, something that you may want to look at getting fixed. Several ways to prevent mold that we could do ourselves is control the moisture. So reduce the humidity. So get a dehumidifier, eliminate and repair sources of excess moisture. So dampen up, clean up as soon as you can. Make sure you have proper air circulation. And circulation, not necessarily a fan, because as we learned, mold spores, they can flow through the air, on a fan. So getting a fan or an exhaust fan is not necessarily your best bet. Getting a HEPA filter is your best bet, and I'll explain to you guys why in a minute. Proper ventilation and obviously cleanliness. As I said, there are different types of mold, and in order to assess what's the best type of treatment, you need to assess what type of mold you have. The most common one is hydrophilic. So this is a mold that requires a lot of water. This is the one that is most commonly found in our homes, or one that is most commonly found by us on our day-to-day lives. It's usually found indoors after significant water intrusion, such as a flood or again bathrooms, leaky gaskets, all that kind of stuff. The most well-known species is the black mold, and this is extremely toxigenic. This is what would cause the most health problems. The other type of mold is what's called mesophilic. It requires a little bit less moisture and grows in average conditions. So nothing crazy, nothing ridiculous. The common species. Generally, the colors change in the types of mold. It's not necessarily black in nature. It's a little bit lighter, more like a grayish color, and causes a little bit less health problems. The other three are zero tolerant and xerophilic. Again, these are different types of mold that grow in drier conditions or outdoors as well. And there are three possible ways in order to get infected or contaminated by mold. The first one is inhalation. As we spent some time discussing, kind of drilling in the fear of inhaling mold spores and your body becoming the fertile ground for breeding. That's the first one. The second one is contact with your skin. So touching the mold itself, or that is a way that you could actually get infected. And ingestion, which again is serious. Like when you think about a child, walking around the house. I know my little niece. She's always putting everything in her mouth. She's at that stage where, if it could fit in her mouth, it's going in there, type of thing, right? So one of my worries would be what if she picks up a piece of wood in the basement for whatever reason, or a piece of material that's moldy and puts it in her mouth. Like, that's going to cause some major problems. And there are other ways to ingest mold without knowing. Again, we talked about my moldy bread experience. Those are the three primary ways to kind of get infected with it. Some of the common symptoms of that vary from mild to severe. Mild could be, being congested, having a rash or itching, watery eyes. When it gets to moderate itchiness, difficulty in breathing, which is common when you find people that are in a house that's infected with mold, is that they commonly say that they have problems breathing. It causes headaches and some disorientation. And when it gets severe, this is usually after like ingestion or direct contact, is swelling, severe and difficult, severe breathing problems, abdominal pains, cramps, like mental confusion, like the whole nine, right? So it could really become dangerous and severe. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, people who have immunocompromised systems, people who are, for example, undergoing chemotherapy, whose immune systems are a little bit lower and weaker, people who are getting up in age, and even small children whose immune systems aren't fully developed yet, their susceptibility to these allergic reactions are wholly natural. And over to the black mold. For here in Ottawa, this is the kind of mold that we're going to encounter the most. And I'll explain to you guys why Ottawa is such a hotspot for mold in just a second. But this is known as black mold. It's commonly found in plant debris and soil. It's black to green in color, pretty slimy looking, pretty gross looking. And when it dries out, it becomes, gray and powdery. And again, just because it's dried out and becomes powdery doesn't mean that the mold's dead, as we have learned, right? That gray and powdery substance just means that it's just waiting for moisture to come into contact with. One of the ways in order to prevent, or one of the ways in order to make sure that mold doesn't come to that level where it's severe, is to ensure that our indoor air quality is sufficient. Indoor air quality is the quality of air in and around buildings and structures. It's frequently associated with the health and comfort of the building's occupants. One of the things that we start to hear about a lot more nowadays is what's called sick building syndrome. Have you guys heard that before? Right? And we'll explain why. This is a fun fact. Did you know that we spend about 90% of our time indoors? Like when I first read that statistic, I was not surprised. Like I'm a hermit. I will stay inside as much as I can. But again, this for me really put things into perspective, where I really need to make sure that the air quality in my house is good, not only for myself but for my wife and for our children, because I don't want them to get sick or infected with mold. But why is indoor air quality so important? Well, poor indoor air quality can worsen symptoms related to asthma and other allergies. The sick building syndrome is a combination of symptoms thought to be caused by the environment in which a person lives or works. So what are some of the regulations that you guys encounter with regards to sick building syndrome? What are some of the guidelines that people need to meet? For one, cologne, right? You guys have policies or rules about heavy use of cologne in your offices, right? What are some other things? Obviously, smoking is out the door. And what are some, do you guys have any other not necessarily, just what's generally considered to be common sense, right? Be considerate of other people. Indoor air quality is a little bit more than that. Biological contaminants are living organisms, which include mold, bacteria, and dust. And there are these chemical contaminants, which include colognes, gases, household cleaners, and other things like that. So when we're in a building, sometimes it's hard to avoid those things. Some people will adhere to the rules and common sense guidelines, and other people won't. And so what you need to be able to have is have something that's going to directly come in and compensate for the lack of people's adherence to certain rules with regards to indoor air quality. One of the best things is what we're going to be looking at right now is the hyper HEPA filter. Before, why is Ottawa such a hot spot? Does anyone want to read this out for me? All right, so Ottawa is adjacent to.
You're doing a great job.
Everyone was reading. I could hear them at a really low level. I was like, okay, that's good. It's not loud enough. But Ottawa is adjacent to a river and open bodies of water, so that again puts us at a higher risk. Let's just face it. Our city has an aging underground infrastructure. We enjoy. I don't know if we enjoy, but we enjoy relative high humidity, and we're at a low horizon from sea level. So Ottawa in itself, just as the way it's structured as a city, is just a hotspot for mold.